there has been some ongoing protest in Lagos, Nigeria, and around the country for about a week and a half now, or even 2 weeks, that have really, really galvanized the young people in Nigeria. So it started early in October, when young people came under the banner of NSARS, hashtag NSARS. And if you go on social media, you'll see a number of stories, and we might get to some of those stories as well, as to why this is such a sensitive and pivotal issue for the young people of Nigeria. So there have been peaceful, very, very peaceful protests in about 20 cities across Nigeria, which is a country of about 200 million people. Depending on who you ask, you get plus or minus, but about 200 million people over 20 cities across the nation. And young people primarily have been protesting a special division of the Nigeria Police Force, which is known as the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. They were set up to deal specifically with robbery situations, with heavily armed individuals and robbery situations. But in the past decade or so, looking back at some of the stories we've been able to follow, they've turned out to be a danger to the young people of Nigeria. Stories of extrajudicial killings, extortion, rapes, murder, and so many other things. Kidnappings have gone on, and it got to a point where the young people of Nigeria said enough is enough. So the protests have been on for over a week now, entered second week, but yesterday they took a very deadly toll. Yesterday we had a situation where a curfew was announced in Lagos. Now Lagos is the most populated city in Nigeria. Some would debate that versus Lagos and Kano, but it's a heavily populated city, has a large young population. And yesterday, the governor announced a curfew. So at 12 in the afternoon, he announced a curfew for 4, which was later moved to 9. But around 6 in the evening yesterday, we saw armed men, the military, and I will play that video, coming out and shooting peaceful protesters who were walking towards them with their hands up, with the flag of Nigeria, green, white, green, singing the national anthem. Joining me to discuss this, I have Marianne Okon. She's also a journalist in Nigeria. We've both been on the protest grounds. We've been covering this story for our company, for our media company, for the past few weeks. Marianne, how are you?
I don't know if I should say that I'm good or I'm just hanging in there. I mean, it's been a tough day. It's been a tough night, and it's still a tough day today. So, well,
Yeah.
I'm all right.
All right, so as I was just getting ready before we went live, I asked Marianne how her side is, because she stays around the area where there has been a lot of looting and shooting and fires, but that has extended. Lagos is really divided. We're divided by the lagoon, so you often hear talk of VI, Lekki, that's more towards the sea area. Then you hear talk of places like the mainland, Surulere, Egbeda, Ikeja, but the violence has spread to all parts of Lagos at this point in time. We know that there are unfortunately businesses that have been looted. As of now, there are still, in the early hours and even afternoon of today, hearing reports that there was still shooting happening in and around the Lekki side. So, Marianne, what's the latest from that access of Lagos right now?
Well, I'll tell you what, I was unable to have any sleep because I was just really worried about what was happening to the people who were still stuck outside with soldiers. So I was keeping tabs of what was happening around town, and then I finally just summoned up the courage to walk out because I could hear gunshots from my house, and my estate was not letting anyone out. The security had shut the gates. People were not going in, people were not coming out. So later on, I think an hour ago, I just said, you know what, I'm going to take my camera, I'm going to take my lens, I'm going out. I would stand at a distance and just capture what's happening because early this morning, certain angry youth, young people, not necessarily the peaceful protesters, decided to hit the streets because young people were killed. And the governor of the state had said that nobody had died, there was no casualty. And this somewhat enraged these young people.
Yeah.
There were filling stations that were burned. The superstores in Lagos, especially on the island, ShopRite and Spar. I literally was witnessing people, looting the shops and passing by me. I saw people carrying trolleys from the superstore, with things filled in it, racing home. And I was just thinking to myself, how did we get here? How did we allow this peaceful protest to degenerate to the point where hoodlums have taken over, and it's now a free for all. I tell you, vehicles have to even drive out of their estates or drive around my area. They need to put a leaf on their car to
Mm,
say, "Look, we're here for peace. We just want to pass." And I was lucky because when I stepped out, I saw a group of, um, young people who I know were not peaceful, who looked more like hoodlums, and I could hear them say they were going to attack the estate that was next to mine, and for me
mm,
that was alarming. And but then it's not possible because our estates are heavily secured, and our security men are armed, so it's not actually possible. But I did not know that this same young people, group of young men, were going towards the superstore to loot. While I was standing by my junction, I had videos of young people with bags and trolleys. I saw a particular guy carry a massive toaster on his shoulder. I saw another one carry a television set. I mean, it's
wow.
ridiculous. So, and I also took a video of smoke bellowing out of the superstore just around my corner. It's a stone throw from where I live. You could actually walk down to the supermarket, but it's actually on fire. And as we speak, there's a filling station, a petrol station that is directly opposite my estate that is also on fire.
Mm,
And this is because
okay.
it's rampage in the city. Yeah.
So you said, how did we get here? And in my introduction, I did a little bit of conversation as to why there are protests. And I had Peter ask about the kidnapping. So the kidnapping comes into this, where you have a situation where men who are state-sanctioned operatives, part of this division of the Nigeria Police Force, they mount roadblocks. So what sometimes happens is while they mount these roadblocks, they'll stop, they'll flag a car down, ask you for your particulars, ask you certain things. They may then say you're a Yahoo boy. And in Nigerian slang, Yahoos those who are involved in online criminal activities and online fraud. So they may just carry you from there and put you in a jail. You would assume that they would take you to the jail where that division of the police came from. We've heard stories of people being transported across state lines by these individuals. We've heard stories of people being taken, and Lagos is pretty big, even as small as it is, but people being taken out of their local vicinity to a completely different local government, basically like taking from one county to another by these same individuals. We've heard stories of them going into people's homes and just saying you're wanted for fraud or this and that, and carrying them to prisons, and their families do not know. And one of the many issues that has come up in this situation is that the Nigerian police does not have a central database. When you're taken to jail in Nigeria, there's no central database where somebody will enter your name and be able to say, okay, this person is in this jail, they've been arrested by this officer, this is the crime they're accused of. Everything is still done by hand, by paper. And so there's a lot of conversation as to why is that. So how did we get here? So just a few weeks ago, Nigerian youths made 5 simple demands, and that's what you can see in front of you now. They called it 5 for 5. And the questions and the demands then, because protesters were also being arrested at the very beginning of these protests, were that all those who were protesters must be released immediately. That all those who are protesters must be released immediately. They also asked that the SARS unit of the police be immediately disbanded as well. That was one of the demands. They asked for reformation. They asked for judicial panels to be set up so that people with complaints about how their family members have been treated, how they themselves have been treated by the police, would be able to go to these judicial panels of inquiry and investigation and share their stories. So that's also something that came up as well. So this whole situation is out. It boggles anyone's mind that we went from
Okay. Uh,
they could be demanding that. They could also be demanding that healthcare be fixed. Nigeria is one of the worst places in the world to be born as a child. Maternal mortality numbers are ridiculous. We just successfully managed to eradicate wild polio virus just, I think, about a month or two ago. They could be demanding better roads. The road network in Nigeria is atrocious. There's so many things that the young people of Nigeria could be demanding, but they were demanding simply that a division of the police that is meant to serve and protect should not be allowed to get away with taking lives, with extorting people, with kidnapping, with raping, with torture. And this is how we ended up where we are. So where we are right now is that a number of people are reported dead. A number of people are reported to be in the hospital in Lagos as well. And I want to play that video for you. Peaceful protesters have been at what is probably one of the most visible sites of the protest for a while now, and that is the Lekki toll gate. So that's why you see Lekki trending. So this is the video of what went down in Lekki. You can see men in army uniform apparently shooting into the air. You can hear it. And then shooting into the air, shooting into protesters. Any bullet that goes up will come down until it meets a solid mass. So whether you're shooting into the air, you're shooting at protesters, you are shooting, and we have people injured and things like that. So this is where we are right now. Many people are anticipating that a state of emergency may be declared in Lagos. The army is apparently also out in other cities and states across Nigeria. Marianne, when you heard news of this yesterday, when you saw this video, when you saw the video of DJ Switch, who was using very crude methods to try to get a bullet out of a young man, what did you think? What did you think?
First things first, I was so weak. I was weak. I didn't think that this would ever happen in Nigeria. I have never, in my 16 years of broadcast journalism, I've never
Okay, so
seen
some connection
people
issues. There are
protesting.
reports across Lagos and even across the country that people have had a lot of slowdown with the internet. So there's Marianne now.
In that I was not. And I have.
So we're having very serious connection issues. I've been experiencing them since yesterday, and I know a number of people have reported experiencing connection issues as well. So just please.
Can you hear me, Tolu? Is it possible to hear me? Anyway, I think we lost Tolu, but like I was saying, um, can you hear me, Peter? Is it possible to hear me? Well, I just want to know. Okay, great, you guys can hear me. So, like I said, the protesters were peaceful. They were very coordinated. Um, people, if people lost items, they would find and return them. People were advised not to touch women inappropriately. I mean, it was properly coordinated. Nobody was carrying any form of arms or ammunition. These people were only asking that their rights be respected. And so I was thinking to myself, how do you send soldiers to a civil protest? You have police officers in Nigeria. Why were the police officers not there? I mean, in a situation that we find ourselves, the policemen have been shooting at protesters also, but I mean, I'm just saying that we did not need soldiers because soldiers are trained for war and they shoot first before they ask questions. So for me, I felt bad. I felt like the country had failed its young people. So oh dear, Tulu, we can't hear you. Tulu, we can't hear you. Um, okay. Anyway, well, if you're watching us, I'm just gonna, fill in for Tulu. If you're watching us, you're watching us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You have questions, you have comments. Let us know what's happening where you are. We had tweeted that earlier on. We want to know what's happening in your area. Are you safe? Is there any form of disturbance? Is your area calm? Because there are places, and there's 7 states around the country that have not felt what we're feeling in Lagos. Lagos seems to be a hot zone. as we speak. And like I said at the beginning of this interview, I was just taking a walk around my area and I could see a lot of looting taking unrest. I could have been, harassed by these hoodlums, but I had some security people, security men around my estate, protecting me. But this is not the Lagos that we hoped to have. I mean, it's because of things like this that young people hit the streets in Nigeria to say, look, we want a change. The police officers who have been given the responsibility to protect and serve us have turned on us. Do something about it. We need psych evaluations. We need to make sure that these men are in their right state of mind. And it's not just that. People were asking for welfare of police officers, but it looks like we became a target for the army. As we speak, ladies and gentlemen, it's by Nigerian time, it's about 5:20 p.m. The Nigerian president is yet to speak to us. We have not heard anything from the president. Now, earlier on in the day, just to respond to a question by something that was put here by Ade earlier on, Ade was saying that we said, okay, yeah, Adesanya, you were saying that the governor did not say that there were no casualties. Initially, the governor said of plain ignorance that people had died.
Yes.
He said that nobody.
Can you hear me now?
Died. Yes, we can hear you, Tolu. Great to have you back.
All okay, right. Fantastic. Please. No, please go ahead and answer the question, Mariam.
Yeah. So earlier on, the governor had feigned ignorance. I was part of the press briefing. I watched it live. I have clips of that press briefing.
Mm-hmm.
It was later on in the day that the governor now said that one person had died as a result of gunshot injury. And they went further to say that they were not sure if this person was a protester, that they were going to investigate. Making all of us.
And part of that statement that the governor made also was that the person died in the hospital. So protesters have insisted that someone died on the scene yesterday in Lekki. So that was where the denial is. We're also hearing, I think Femi Gbajabiamila, he's the speaker of the Nigerian House of Representatives. And apparently some tweets coming from him just a few minutes ago. He said, after 60 years, our democracy should have grown beyond the point where conflicting visions of nationhood result in violence on the streets and blood on the ground. It is unavoidably and painfully clear that there were a number of casualties as a result of gunfire at the Lekki toll gate. So I've shown you guys the video of what are men in army uniform shooting at protesters. Nigeria's army has come out to deny that it is their men and that they will investigate. The Lagos State governor also said that forces beyond our direct control. Nobody is accountable right now. Nobody is responsible right now. The Lagos State governor says it is people beyond his direct control, forces beyond his direct control. The army and a military in Nigeria that if you're caught wearing camouflage on the streets, people feel, men and women of the forces feel that they can assault you. There are a number of videos of Nigerians being assaulted for wearing camouflage.
Yeah, they don't think, they do it. They assault you. They make sure that they take it off your body. So it doesn't even matter if it was a camouflage bottom you were wearing, they'll take it off you.
Exactly. So how can the military then be saying that they're unaware of a large group of armed men and maybe women in that force as well, who are walking the streets of Lagos wearing army uniform? There's also the video, and but the video I showed you was towards the end when they were closer. So there's a longer range video of where you can see them advancing on the protesters. And it's also very important to note that the army went to this site when there were other areas in Lagos that had more violence going on at that time. A police station had been burnt earlier in the day, and there were violent protests and clashes. I won't even say clashes because it would mean that people were engaging, but there were earlier violence in different parts of Lagos. By the time the army went to Lekki, to the toll gates was literally the most peaceful place. I've been there. You've been there. I've been to the Alawusa protests. These were peaceful protesters. And I have to tell you that I've cried a number of times in the past 24 hours. People were singing the national anthem, wearing the green, white, green flag, and they were shot for demanding not to be killed. I can't understand it. I can't understand it.
I was in the same position yesterday. I was at loss for words. It means that we were helpless. If you feel unprotected in your own country, a country where you are a citizen. You carry a passport of that country. You were born and raised in that country. You call yourself a Nigerian, but you are not protected by the state. This cannot happen in the US. This cannot happen in the UK. It cannot happen anywhere else. But in our country, it's a free
And
for all. I mean, I'm still questioning the fact that the army can say that the media is lying and that the live
yeah.
feed that we were putting to them was fake. I mean, I'm wondering who would manufacture a live feed and who would want to shoot at people wearing uniforms like soldiers. And we have bullets. We have proof. The bullets that were used are bullets that should be used in a war front, not on
Yes.
unarmed protesters. I think we're not
And
serious
let's
in this
let's let's
country.
be honest. We saw earlier in the protest about 4 or 5 days ago that the protesters in Abuja were attacked with water cannons. The Nigerian army, the Nigerian police, whoever it may be, they have a lot of options before you get to live ammunition. You have rubber bullets. You have water cannons. You have hot water cannons. You even have dogs. And yes, they have dogs. You
And
have
they train
other
that to do.
options before you get to live ammunition. We need to know who made the decision that live ammunition was going to be used on protesters. People did not sleep last night because shooting continued. There are even reports that some of those bullets entered houses in Lekki, because wherever you're shooting, a bullet will leave any kind of weapon with a trajectory, with velocity. It will not stop until it meets a mass big enough to stop it. So if a bullet missed somebody in the crowd, it kept going. And some of those bullets kept going until they entered people's homes. So the video that you're seeing now, and then we also have to note, right now there are unfortunately, we're seeing videos that we cannot guarantee the authenticity, that they're related to this situation. But this is one of those that we can, to the large part, say it happened this morning. These are police beating up a suspect, a protester, a hoodlum, we don't know, and then they shoot him. This is exactly why young Nigerians are on the streets. They're on the streets because even if I'm a criminal, there are rights that I have. I still have a right to face a court. I still have a right to defend myself. My life should not be taken because the Nigerian police or whoever has sat down as judge, jury, and executioner. That must end. And for the fact that young Nigerians were on the streets protesting that, and then they died at the hands of these same people who are empowered by the state, it is a shame. It is a shame. Marianne, I have to ask, because I know there are people asking, where is President Muhammadu Buhari?
I'm sorry, I had to laugh. I'm sorry, and I'm not in any way making fun of the situation because it's a terrible one. It could have been me, it could have been you, Tolu, it could have been a family member who was shot. I mean, I saw a picture of one of the guys who was shot today, and my heart literally just broke into two. The president has taken Nigerians for granted ever since he became president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I dare anybody to say different. When the president first became president, it took him 6 months to put a cabinet together. Nigerians had to start asking and begging, where are our ministers? We need you to
But you're even
immigration.
going
We
far. You're
need
even going far. We need to remind people that this that President Muhammadu Buhari, before he became president, he campaigned how many times? He went for that position how many
four
times? He
times.
led a
Four
protest
times.
when he felt that he had been denied his rights. He went to the Supreme Court when he felt that an election was taken from him. This is a man who cried on national TV. This is a man who, let me keep some of the choice words I want to say. Marianne, continue.
Exactly. Exactly. We try our best because, Tolu, I'd like to remind you that the DSS is combing through our social media. We all, as journalists, had to turn off our location settings because they were calling us at random and saying, "Where are you?" People were getting unknown phone calls,
Yeah.
unknown text messages, so we have to be careful. But it doesn't stop us from doing our job. Now, the president has been playing the ostrich for years. The president would fly out of the country, then he would remember that he's the president of a country and think to address us from that country. But he never felt the need to speak to us as citizens, people who campaign. I remember how tough it was for Buhari to become president. It took a Goodluck Jonathan to be a statesman, to step aside and say, you know what? No blood. The blood of every Nigerian is not worth this office. So you know what? I'm going to
Yeah.
step aside for peace to reign. Whether you won or not, I'll let you have it. But fast forward to today, that same president is not letting peace reign in the same country. where he was campaigning for peace. I remember when he was he followed he was flanked by other politicians for the subsidy removal protest. Nobody shot at the president.
By Nigeria.
Nobody shot at the people who were with him. But
Mm,
today, the governor of the state is feigning ignorance. The chief security officer of Lagos State is feigning ignorance. Okay, let's give him that benefit of the doubt. A state governor does not have the powers to give an order to the army because the army, the high command, only responds to the commander in chief. Where's the
yes.
president to come and defend himself? Who gave that order? We're asking all of these questions, but we don't see the president. We haven't heard from the president. We are only hearing feelers. The pictures that are online right now on the government handle, the federal government handle, showing Mr. President sitting nicely in an air-conditioned room, having a Zoom meeting, a Federal Executive Council meeting, and still hasn't felt the need to speak to his people. Is that the president, I ask?
I also think we need to remind people, and there are a lot of people outside who don't know what happened yesterday. So while the protesters have been at Lekki toll gate, it's a major avenue to Lagos. It leads to the Lekki Ekpe Expressway. It leads you out of Lagos if you continue as well. It leads to Ajah. It leads to one of the highbrow areas in Lagos. So in the afternoon, we saw pictures of people who work for the toll gate company, and they came to remove the cameras, the CCTV cameras on the outside. And that was really the first inkling that many protesters may have had, both those who were at Lekki Tollgate and those who were online, that something was up. And then shortly after that, there's a massive billboard that stretches across, I think Lekki Tollgate is like maybe 8 or 12 lanes. I think about 12 lanes. There's a massive billboard that stretches across these 12 lanes. The billboard went blank. Since that billboard has come on, I'm a night crawler sometimes, events and things. I've passed that way many times. I've never seen that billboard go blank. And if it goes blank, it comes back up. It went blank. CCTV was removed. And then later that evening, peaceful protesters were shot. So when you're adding 1 plus 1 plus 1, it's equal 3. But what we need to know is who is the one that ordered who ordered the soldiers to shoot? Who is the one that ordered the CCTV to be taken down? Who is the one who ordered the light? That was the light that was illuminating the area for the protesters to be turned off. There are questions, and we are a country that oftentimes will ask questions and then we forget. But young Nigerians have saying that this one, they will not forget. They will not forget this situation. So we have a number of comments, and I want to say thank you to Adventurous Year 6863. I think you're joining us from India. And he says, teach journalism to Indian media. They work for governments, not for the public. And on that journalism thing, we also have to let you know that there were two media stations in Nigeria that were attacked today. One of them was TVC. The second one was Channels. And there was actually fire. I think I have the video. I'm not sure if I have the TVC video. There was actually fire burning at one of the main buildings of TVC. Shortly afterwards, Channel staff heard that some of the hoodlums or individuals were coming to their station. They're not so far apart, but they're not particularly close. So they both were off air for a number of hours today, but I do believe Channels is back up as well. Marianne, I want us to take something. So I don't know if many have seen that this is getting international attention. My question to you is, do we think international attention will do anything? Hillary Clinton has called on the president to withdraw the army. Joe Biden, who's running for president of the United States, has also made a statement of some regard. We're hearing that the United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres says he's watching the situation closely. But let's hear what this, I think, MP in the UK Parliament had to say, and then the answer to that. Do you think international attention will matter? So that's the video. He wants to know if the counterparts there will be speaking with the Nigerian High Commission in the UK. We know that the Nigerian, I believe, ambassador in the US, his house, people were protesting in front of his house. He reportedly called police on them. But do you think international pressure and possibly international shame? A lot of Nigerians have mentioned that Nigerian politicians do not like international shame. Do you think that will help in any way to move the violence, to at least get the army off the streets and stop this deadly it's not even engagement, this deadly shooting of protesters?
So I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but I feel like there's something to it. Yes, there might be some push and shove here, but it might not really do anything much for us. The most that these countries can do is, issue a visa ban for, those who are involved. But you see, the president has some level of immunity. It has to be that he was directly involved for him to be, stopped from going to any country. But that's the most that they can do because they're not the leaders of our country. Our constitution is supposed to have the power to deal with the perpetrators of this dastardly act. So, as much as it's getting international, attention, it's great. It's great because it will bring some form of embarrassment. I hear that a certain person has run out of the country for fear of, being lynched or getting a bad name. That is normal for our Nigerian politicians when they see that, they've set fire to something and so it's going to backlash or, they run away. I don't think that international influence is going to do much for us. I think that we have to put pressure, continuous pressure on our government. And I think we need to take this protest online. We need to take this protest to our media houses. And I posted this yesterday. I said, it's not enough to tell our protesters to go home. We need to, as media houses, open our doors to these protesters in our way. Every show, every programming must have an interruption to talk about NSAS, to talk about a new Nigeria. It doesn't mean that the journalist or the presenter on air is going to come out rightly and say, I support NSAS. But give platforms for these conversations to be had, because if we have a good and a new Nigeria, it's going to be good for you and I. We have been oppressed for so many years. As a little child, I was told I was going to be the future leader. I'm going to turn 37 on Friday. I'm still waiting to lead. It's time for us to finally just hold on to the nozzles of power and say, you know what, we're not letting go. We get something done. International influence can do just very little for us. It's great that we're telling our own story, which is great. I'm very disappointed that the mainstream media was not reporting the stories as they were breaking. In fact, I was watching all of them, and what we could get was that its own bulletin for that day, and nobody was streaming live what was happening at the Lekki tour. And it seemed more like a calculated attempt to just put this at the back, at the back seat. Don't forget that also some of the headlines that were coming from TV stations made it look like the protesters were the ones calling for bullets, which I'm not in any way saying it's okay for protesters to go burn down.
Yes, that happened as well.
This is what kind of made that hostility come out this morning, and that's why a particular TV station was burned to the ground, because also they feel that these people have affiliations with a certain politician and they were biased. I think that there's a lot to learn from this, and Nigerians should not we should not give up. We should not think that this is the end. You can hear gunshots right now from where I am. It's
so they're still shooting.
It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Okay, so I want to share a few of the stories that we know so far about the victims, because I think it's important, especially for those outside of Nigeria, to really understand the heartbreak and the atrocities that have gone out. But first, I'll play a roll call of victims that happened at the Lekki toll gate protest, and then we'll talk about some of the victims of this situation. Unfortunate, very unfortunate. Can you guys hear? Okay, it's okay. Can you hear it?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll let the visual keep playing, but the protesters, there was a candlelight vigil Today is
Mhm.
Wednesday, Friday night, I believe it was, or Saturday night. My date is off. Everything seems so surreal right now.
It was
And names
Saturday night. It was
Saturday, and
Saturday.
names were called. One of the stories that has given so many people nightmares is the story of Chijioke. So
Mm.
Chijioke went for a naming ceremony in Nigeria. When you have children, particularly, you wait a certain amount of days, and then you give them names, and it's a really big cultural fanfare, especially for the Igbos and the Yoruba. So you give them names. So he was coming from a naming ceremony when he was picked up by by SARS. His family could not find him for a long time, but they eventually were told that he was at a certain SARS detention center. Apparently, he had already been killed by the time the family found the location where he was supposed to be at. His father kept going back and forth looking for his son, looking for information. I think at one point they said no, he hadn't been killed yet. They said that his mother actually saw him, and they said, "And that's my son. That's my son." And they told them that if you want to get him out, you need to do something for us, which is translation for offering a bribe. So they started looking for ways to pay these policemen, led by CSP James Inwafor. Right now, he has a bounty on his head. And many people have said one of the easiest things governments could have done would be to arrest this man who was CSP of a police station that has some of the most atrocious stories coming out of it. So they kept telling the family to do more, do more. Families going back and forth. They would offer money. They say is not enough. The father sold land, sold so many things. What reportedly offered James and Juan for 3 million naira for his son. He told him that this is chicken change and sent him away. And then eventually, I think they told the family that he was dead. And the father said, I just want to be able to bury my son. And this man, CSP James Nwafor, sent Chijioke's father to a river, to a river that was full of dead bodies. Apparently, this police station, this SARS detention center, would kill people and dump their bodies in the river. This man sent Chijioke's father to the river and had him turning over dead bodies looking for his son. They didn't find
It's
him.
just
They did not find Chijioke. They don't know if he's alive or he's dead. The family simply wants closure. Another story is of a young woman who was killed early in October, I think early October, late August. They were looking for
yeah.
her boyfriend, her fiance. The wedding was just a few weeks. They did not find the fiance at home. They carried this girl. The next day, the police dumped her body at the mortuary and told her family to come and pick up her body. When an independent autopsy was done, it was reported that she had been raped. There's been no accountability. No one has been held responsible. Why would young Nigerians not be on the streets protesting that they simply just want to live? Marianne, I won't lie, those stories have given me nightmares. They've stayed with me. And I
Yeah.
and it's
It could
again
be
it
anybody.
boggles my mind
It just
that
shows that we're not safe. We're not safe. Nobody is safe. Absolutely nobody. I mean, how do you make an elderly man? I mean, sorry, Peter, you were asking what CSP stands for. CSP, the Chief Superintendent of Police. That's what it is. So he's a high-level police officer who thinks that he can take laws into his hands. Every mother who listened to that Shijuke story cried. I mean, every time that story is told, it brings tears to my eyes. It's a horrible, horrible situation. How do you tell an
yeah,
elderly man to go into a river of dead bodies? What are we? What are you guys? Are we in a war zone? What is this? I mean, it's and this is such a serious issue that our governments seem to just rub off their shoulders because it's not their problem. It's not affecting their money and the looting that they're doing. So it's not a big deal. But well, look at it. We are protesting at a toll that gives them at least seven something or 17 billion a day. And that's when they sent soldiers to shoot innocent people. So if you touch their money, you touch them. It's sad. It's disrespectful to us Nigerians. It's disrespectful to those of us who come out to vote. It's disrespectful to those of us who honor the flag. We carried the
yeah,
flag. and soldiers who swore an oath to protect the the country are killing its citizens. Heads have to roll.
I also
We're not
remember.
going to take this season down.
I also remember the story of the mechanic. I can't remember his name now, but he was driving. I think he was taking the car back to the customer, and the police stopped him and they accused him of robbery, and they took him to prison. The customer, the owner of the car, came to the police station and told them, "It's my car. He's my mechanic.
Yeah,
He didn't do anything." They told him to go. They gave the owner of the car back his car and they told him to leave. They kept the mechanic. The autopsy, they hung him upside down and apparently they skinned him like they were taking pieces of his flesh. How, in a democracy, in the
and we're not in a
21st
war zone.
century, do we
We're
have
not in
people
old
who are
Uganda.
backed by the state, who are funded by taxpayer money and money that comes out of Nigeria, who wear uniforms, who are meant to protect and serve? How do we have people like that who have turned on the citizens? And you know, a lot of the questions people have been asking, was the 5 for 5 demand so outrageous, so difficult? What is it in this special anti-robbery squad that is so special to government that it seems so difficult for them to let go of? You said the Inspector General of Police, after the protests had gone off for a few days, actually said that all SARS officers were to report to Abuja and submit their weapons. So our police structure is very centralized. There's an IG of police who sits in Abuja, who then, with whatever, maybe political influence or not, appoints DIGs and commissioners of police and things like that. So as much as a governor in a state is the chief security officer, there's only so much control that they have. So you ask them to come and submit their weapons. To date, we have not seen that SARS officers have gone to Abuja to submit their weapons. To date, people are complaining of being extorted by these same
Yes,
individuals.
yes, yes.
How
It was
then,
happening in
because
Aba.
government has been saying that young people should give them a chance. Amnesty International has at minimum 3 or 4 reports that report the atrocities of this division of police over a span of about 5 years. Action was not taken. Investigative panels were put together, but no action was taken. So why do you think the young Nigerians on the street do not trust government enough to go home? Because you have not shown good faith. Because the Nigerian government has not shown good faith and has shown that they clearly lack sincerity when it comes to this issue. Marianne, what
Uh,
is next? What is next?
um, I also just want to add quickly to what you said that the lack of sincerity and the lack of concern is mostly from this government. And I'm not in any way trying to play favoritism because I don't know if this were to happen under a former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, it would deteriorate to this point. I do not also think that there would be
Mm.
any form of chaos as this bad under Goodluck Jonathan or our former president, Yaradua. I'm thinking that this particular presidency has no respect whatsoever for Nigerians, hence the quietness. I mean, the way that it's been going, the only person who's spoken up is the vice president, and he was reading tweets that were printed out saying his story, but his story is not what the youth are asking for. So, of course,
Marianne? Okay, so again, still experiencing a few connection issues. I want to play a video.
I'm sorry.
News Central, the company that I work for here in Nigeria, was at the protest site. Okay, you're back. Okay, I wanted to
Yes.
just finish up with Prof. Duncan's video, but please go ahead with your statement.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't want to be a bearer of bad news. I feel like the protest may end for the people who meant well, but the looting, the sabotaging of businesses across the country is going to continue. In fact, tonight is going to gain more momentum because it's almost
Mm,
6 p.m. Nigerian time. The president has not said anything. There's not been any feelers that he's going to address the nation. I do not know why the president does not want to speak to us. I do not know what his problem is. In fact, this has also aided people to believe that the president is no longer alive because a sitting and alive president would not be so quiet about people being killed. Even the president and the vice president's
yeah.
daughters, supported the NSAS campaign on social media. this is not enough. Nigerians want to see and hear from their president, but until then, I'm sorry to your 10 Nigerians.
And what we have heard on social media is young Nigerians saying that you can't put us on curfew forever, that as soon as the curfew is lifted, they
We're
resume
back on the
protesting.
yeah.
Yeah, so we spoke to Professor JT Duncan. He served in Nigeria's civil war, for you to understand how old he is. But before that, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has tuned in. Hero Sparks from Australia, thank you so much. We really, really ask that if you're watching and this is the first you're hearing about this, please share this information. Please share this live. Please go to the hashtag and see the stories that people are sharing and, of course, what's going on. So I want to play Prof. Duncan's words, and then probably that's how we'll wrap things up.
Okay.
And that's when technical stuff delays. Let's see if it's coming up. But News Central, the company I work for, that Marianne also works for, we've been covering the protest as well. So this is it. Can you guys hear it?
Yes, we can. Mm.
So that's from the media company that myself and Marianne work for. And so we have been covering the protests as it is. And we just want people to know that we'll continue to cover it as it is right now. But we also, this is a man who served in Nigeria's civil war. He and his family have been fighting the good fight, I guess you would say. He was there, his daughter was there, the grandson was there as well, and they were all parts of the protest. And just thinking about the fact that one family has forever been fighting, and many people, this is replicated across Nigeria, many people have constantly been demanding a better Nigeria. And the fact that they are met with bullets, they are met with water cannons, no accountability, no impunity. The protesters were demanding that those who have killed, those who have extorted, those who have kidnapped be held accountable. Take them to courts. We don't want orderly room trials that they'll be dismissed and then they can do other things. But again, I asked this on Twitter and I asked now, Marianne, why does this seem to be the hill? Why is this so difficult for the Nigerian government to actualize effectively and truly, genuinely ending SARS, and then also making sure that they hold officers accountable? We've seen a few states, Ekiti, Lagos, I think Oshun or Ondo, putting together these panels of inquiry. But they've had Amnesty International reports for years. They've had reports from the National Human Rights Commission for years. They've had reports. This CSP, James Nwafor, that we mentioned, he actually got a job with a governor. He was appointed, even though these allegations were public knowledge. What do you say about that?
It goes to show that the Nigerian government does not prioritize people. They have no value for life, and this is not new to us as Nigerians. There's no value on the life of any Nigerian. I'm sorry to say this. The international community needs to know this for sure. One Nigerian dies is nothing to them. Five, nothing to them, except it's going to cost them money, or the international it's going to cost them their relationship with the international community. That's when you see them do anything about it. Again, before now, years, I think in the first tenure of Mr. President, there have been calls for the service chiefs to resign because the
Yes.
war against Boko Haram is crap. Nobody's doing anything. And the soldiers who are shooting at us today, Tulu, I'd like to remind you that it was us, the media, it was us, the young people who were canvassing support. We were asking the government to help them while they were in
Yeah.
front of Boko Haram. They did not have the ammunition they needed to fight Boko Haram. The senior officers were eating up their monies. They were taking monies that were supposed to be used to equip these officials to travel, to build houses, to buy property in Dubai. We, the people, fought for the army, and today the army have turned their guns on us. It's quite a shame. Well, the future is uncertain for us as Nigerians. The government is not going to do anything because if the IGP is still sitting there as Inspector General of Police, he cannot be a judge in his own case. Nothing is going
Yeah.
to change. He's a beneficiary of the injustices that have been meted out on every young, middle-aged Nigerian. In fact, everything that the police has done to us, whether it's brutality, kidnapping, killings, he is complicit. And until that man is made to step down, nothing's going to change, unfortunately.
So I know that there is a change.org petition about having the Inspector General of Police. I think now it has included President Muhammadu Buhari and possibly the Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, to face the ICC, to face criminal charges, what do you
Human
call
rights
it? Human rights abuses and violations in front of Hague. I also know there's a petition in the UK. I know there are over 10,000 signatures, and I think it's about over 20,000, but they for 100,000. I don't know if they've met it yet, so that
Yes,
this
it's
particular
gone
issue
past
can be discussed on
150 as
the
we speak. It's more than
yes.
150.
So for
Yeah.
this particular issue to be discussed on the floor of the House of Lords, the thing is, government has said we had Bajabi Amila, we also had Ahmad Lawan, who is the president of the Senate, saying go home, give the federal government time. But the federal government did not need time to institute a curfew in Lagos, or the Lagos government. The federal government did not need time to call soldiers out onto the streets and to have
Mm-hmm.
innocent young Nigerians losing their lives. So when we talk about time, time is up. Nigerian youth have said time is up. We won't
Time is
give you
up.
time anymore. Do what you need to do. We have a comment from Ayebusi, and it says they won't implement the demands of the youth for credible government in the country because that will deny them more opportunities to continue to milk this country. Reasons that they won't give in easily, but we won't relent. We move. And I was listening to Femi Falana this morning. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. We take, it's interesting when somebody looks
And a
at the
human rights
political structure of Nigeria.
lawyer.
We take a lot of British because we are a former British colony, but we have also an American system in terms of certain as well. So he's a senior advocate of Nigeria, human rights lawyer. He's been fighting for Nigeria for, he said, over 40 years. And he gave kudos to those who are organizing. I think that's the final point we'll wrap up on. One of the big things we've seen with this protest is that there's no visible leader. There's no face. And we've seen state governors and even Abuja at the center asking for the movement to appoint representatives and leaders so that they come to the table. But many of these young people have seen situations where leaders and representatives are appointed, they go and they meet government officials, and the next thing, the protest is off, issues are not solved. So from the very beginning, this movement has rejected the notion of representatives and leaders. They have been self-funded through numerous ways. Even last night, we heard from those organizing ambulances that the army initially did not allow ambulances to go through to be able to get to some of the injured in Lekki. So they've organized ambulances, they've organized security for themselves, they've organized compensation for some people who had their cars attacked in Abuja when vandals and hoodlums got loose. They've organized lawyers and helped young people who were part of the protest to get out of jail. So they've become a mini government on their own, but they continue to refuse to appoint leaders or representatives. Marianne, where do you think the organization goes from here? They've said that this is a time that they're using to re-strategize as well. Youth are saying the curfew cannot last forever. Once you lift it, we are back on the streets. But there has to come a time where there is some kind of conversation at the table. I don't think it's a compromise because a right to life is not a compromise. Me saying I want to live, I don't want to leave my house and disappear. There are families who do not know where their loved ones are. 15 years, no word. Dead or alive, nothing. Somebody went out to buy bread. Somebody went to school, disappeared, nothing. So where do you think the movement goes from here?
Oh, the movement is still on. strong from what the feelers that we're getting from the key protesters. They're not going to give in. There's a slogan that a famous musician, Nigerian musician, coined. People are beginning to refer to it our mumu don't do, meaning that our foolishness is, I'm being foolish. We're done taking off, nonsense that we took from the government. No more lies. There's also another, lingo that no more audio promises. So we're not going to take anything the government tells us. We want to see action. And until young Nigerians see the government actively implementing, it's going to take, they will king at us. How many of us can you possibly kill? Go ahead, keep shooting. So that is where Nigerian young people are. It's going to keep going until the president comes and says, let us talk. It's never going to stop. Never.
All right, Marianne Okon, thank you so much. We are continuing coverage. So if you are on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you can follow at News Central TV. We have a lot of footage there as well from the conversations happening in Nigeria. You can also follow me and Marianne on Twitter as well. We are keeping the story alive as much as possible on Twitter. I'm at Solulokwe AB. Marianne, what are you on Twitter?
MIMIEYO, Mimi Ayo.
Okay. So please follow us on social media as well. We need to continue to get this story out there, keep the pressure on, keep the attention on as well. If you are not Nigerian and this is the first time you're hearing about this, please ask questions. You can send comments to our pages. We'll get as many answers for you as possible. Please reshare this, repost this. Young Nigerians are dying because they've asked not to be killed. And I don't understand how difficult it is for a government to respect someone's right to life. These are people who are wearing state-backed uniforms. They are state-backed operatives. They report to the state, they report to the Nigerian people, and this should not be how this is going. So I believe I will be on with Peter tomorrow. So if you have any questions about the EndSARS protest and movement in Nigeria, you can join me with Peter tomorrow. I think Marianne, you'll be on, is it Saturday? With Peter. So we want to keep attention on this situation as well. We'll see our own lives. Yes, I also know that one of our colleagues, Ugochi, is starting her own live on this same situation as well. So if you want to join her, you should see her live on the news feed right now. We need to keep the pressure on. And as we like to say in Nigeria, we move, but young Nigerians seem very determined that they are going to change this country. And they can do that. And we are with them all the way. So thank you to everybody who joined. Marianne, again, thank you so much. We'll do this again, and we'll continue to give you updates on the situation in Nigeria. Do have a pleasant evening, everyone.
All right. Thank you for watching.
Bye.